The night was heavy with smoke and strange lights. The alien slave market buzzed with noise, sellers shouting, buyers laughing, chains rattling. It was a place of misery, where the strong sold the weak, and the weak had no voice. In the center of the stage, under a dim red lamp, sat a figure that once shook battlefields. He was a warrior, tall and broad, but now broken. His body was covered in scars, and his legs no longer moved. He sat in a heavy chair made of iron, bound by chains. His eyes, once fierce and proud, now burned with silent rage. This was not just any alien. He was known across the stars as a defender of worlds, but after one brutal battle, his body failed him. Now the crowd jeered. Some aliens laughed and called him useless. Others shouted bids, not for respect, but for mockery. A paralyzed warrior was nothing more than a broken toy to them. His wings, once sharp and deadly, now hung limp by his sides. His weapons had been stripped away, his honor crushed. The auctioneer, a fat alien with 4 arms, shouted above the noise. "Here is the once great warrior, a legend reduced to nothing. Who will take him? Who dares?" The crowd howled with cruel laughter. No one wanted him for service. No one wanted him for war. They wanted him as a trophy, a reminder that even legends fall. Among the crowd, hidden behind taller figures, stood a human, small compared to most species, fragile compared to the armored aliens around him. His clothes were simple, his face tired, but his eyes were sharp. He watched the warrior, not with mockery, but with something rare, pity and respect. The human clenched his fists, his heart pounded. He had heard stories of this warrior, tales of bravery, sacrifice, and honor. He remembered how the warrior's army once stood against invaders who threatened countless colonies. Now here he was, sold like trash. The human looked around. No one moved to help. No one cared. To them, it was entertainment, but to him, it was wrong. Something stirred inside him, something humans were known for. He could not explain it, but he could not walk away. The auctioneer barked again. "Worthless, but rare. Who will start the bid? 1 credit, 2 credits?" The aliens laughed. Some waved coins as a joke. Others spit on the ground. The warrior kept his head high, refusing to bow, but his silence spoke of shame. Then, breaking the noise, a voice rose. "I will take him." It was not loud, but it cut through the crowd like a blade. Heads turned, eyes narrowed, and whispers began. It was the human. The crowd laughed harder. A human? A tiny, soft human. One alien mocked. "What will he do with a crippled giant?" Another hissed. But the human stood firm. His body trembled, but his eyes did not. The warrior looked at him. For the first time in years, someone was not laughing, not mocking. The human's gaze was steady. He saw not a broken body, but a living soul. The auctioneer smirked. "Very well, human. Pay your price. Take your burden, if you dare." The human reached into his bag. He had little, almost nothing, but he poured every coin, every credit he owned into the alien's greedy hands. His future, his food, his survival, all traded in one moment. The crowd shook their heads, calling him mad. But in that madness, a spark had been lit. The paralyzed warrior, bound in chains, looked at the human with new eyes. Maybe this human was a fool. Maybe he would regret it. But deep inside the warrior's chest, where hope had long been buried, a faint ember began to glow. The stage fell silent for a breath. A legend had just been claimed, not by a rich warlord or cruel collector, but by a simple human who dared to care. And in that silence, the galaxy's destiny shifted. The market grew restless as the human handed over his last coin. The chains around the alien warrior rattled as the auctioneer barked orders to his guards. Many aliens muttered in disbelief. Some laughed. Others spat in disgust. For them, it was a waste. For them, the human had bought nothing but trouble. The human walked closer to the stage. His steps were small, but steady. He raised his hand toward the warrior. The alien's eyes, cold and filled with fire, narrowed as he studied this fragile creature who had just purchased him. He did not speak, but his silence asked the question everyone wondered. Why? The guards unchained the warrior roughly. They pushed him forward, his heavy chair screeching against the stone floor. The warrior's wings dragged uselessly. His hands, though still strong, trembled with weakness. He could not stand. He was no longer the storm that once terrified armies. He was broken. The human took the handles of the chair and began to push. The crowd laughed louder. Look at him, the pet of a human. The warrior of legends now carried by a weakling. They pointed and mocked, but the human kept his eyes forward. He did not answer. He did not bow. As they left the market, whispers followed. Rumors spread like fire. The human is insane. He will not last the night. He has angered the gangs. In the shadows, dark figures watched, plotting. The human had made enemies without knowing it. Outside, the cold air of the alien city stung his skin. Neon lights flickered above broken streets. The city was alive with danger. Every corner hid thieves, hunters, and spies. Still, he pushed the chair through the maze of alleys. The warrior sat silent, his eyes scanning the streets. He did not trust this human, not yet. Finally, the human stopped in a quiet place under a crumbling bridge. He set down his small bag, pulled out a cloth, and began cleaning the warrior's wounds. His hands were careful. His touch was respectful. He spoke for the first time, his voice calm. I know you don't trust me, but I couldn't leave you there. Not like that. The warrior's eyes hardened. His voice, deep but strained, rumbled. Why? Human, you risked everything. For what? I am broken. I am nothing. You will gain only death for helping me. The human shook his head. You are not nothing. You are still alive. You are still someone, and no one deserves chains, not even a fallen warrior. The alien stared at him. His heart, long drowned in bitterness, flickered with something it had forgotten. Respect. He wanted to laugh at the foolishness, yet he could not. This human was serious. This human had seen something others had missed. Silence fell between them, broken only by the sound of distant machines and shouts from the streets above. The human offered water. The warrior hesitated, then accepted. Their eyes met, and in that small moment, a bond began, fragile but real. But danger was already moving closer. Back at the market, rival gangs had argued. The human had humiliated them by daring to buy the warrior. They wanted revenge. They wanted blood. One group of hunters had already set out, armed and ready. They would find the human before dawn. Under the bridge, the warrior's instincts stirred. Though his body was weak, his senses were sharp. He felt the air shift. He knew enemies were near. He turned his gaze to the human. Foolish one, you do not understand what storm you have stepped into. You have taken me, and now death follows you. The human tightened his grip on the chair's handles, his face pale but determined. Then let it follow. I won't abandon you. If I have to fight, I'll fight. I'd rather fall with honor than live knowing I walked away. The warrior's chest rose and fell. For the first time in many years, he almost smiled. Perhaps this human was not as fragile as he looked. Perhaps there was steel hidden in that small frame. The night grew darker. The sound of boots echoed through the alleys. Shadows moved closer. The first test had arrived. The human and the paralyzed warrior were no longer just prey of the market. They were targets of the hunt. And in that moment, the warrior realized something. He had been bought with coins, but he had been saved with courage. This human was different. This human dared what no one else dared. And for the first time, the warrior felt that destiny had not ended with chains. It had only just begun. The silence under the bridge did not last long. The human felt it first, the faint tremor of footsteps, the heavy rhythm of boots on stone. The alien warrior's eyes narrowed, his instincts whispering danger. His broken body could not fight, but his mind was still sharp. He knew hunters had come. Out of the shadows, figures appeared, tall aliens with cruel armor and glowing blades. Their eyes burned with greed and rage. The leader stepped forward, his voice low and filled with scorn. You think you can steal from us, human? That warrior belonged to the market. To us, you pay with blood tonight. The human's hands trembled on the warrior's chair, his throat dry, but his heart beat steady. He had no weapon but a small blade at his side. Nothing compared to the hunter's spears and rifles. Yet he did not step back. He whispered to the warrior, "Hold on, we are not done yet." The hunters spread out, circling them. Neon light from above cut across their faces, their shadows stretching long and twisted. The warrior sat silent, watching. His chest burned with shame. He wanted to stand, to fight, but his legs betrayed him. Still, his spirit roared inside. The human pushed the chair back against the wall, his body between the hunters and the warrior. He raised his blade, a laughable weapon against such enemies. The hunters jeered. A weak human stands between us and glory. How foolish. But there was no fear in his eyes, only fire. The first hunter charged, blade flashing. The human dodged to the side, barely escaping the strike. His knife slashed across the alien's arm, not deep, but enough to draw a hiss of pain. The others growled, anger rising. The warrior's voice rumbled. Listen, human. Use the shadows. Use speed. Do not meet them head on. The human nodded, moving quickly, ducking between pillars, striking when he could, retreating when pressed. His movements were desperate but clever. His will carried him where strength could not. But the hunters were many. Their blades struck close, sparks flying as steel met stone. The human's arm bled from a shallow cut. His chest burned from exhaustion. Yet he did not fall. He kept fighting, his eyes never leaving the warrior. The leader grew tired of the game. He raised his rifle, aiming at the chair. If you will not give him up, I will end him myself. His finger tightened on the trigger. The warrior stared into the glowing barrel, ready for death. But the human screamed and hurled himself forward, knocking the rifle aside. The shot exploded into the wall, sending dust and fire into the air. In the chaos, the human grabbed a broken pipe from the ground, swinging it with all his strength. It cracked against the leader's mask, sparks flying. The alien staggered back, roaring in fury. The others closed in, their weapons flashing in the light. The warrior's hands clenched, his mind screamed at his body to move. For years he had sat in chains, helpless. Now a fragile human risked everything for him. He could not sit and do nothing. With a guttural roar, he reached deep into himself. His arms, though weak, lifted. His fist struck the ground, shaking stone. The hunters froze for a moment, shocked that the broken warrior still had strength. That heartbeat of hesitation was enough. The human struck again and again, pushing the hunters back. His body was failing, his vision blurred, but his spirit was unbroken. He shouted, "You will not take him, not while I live." The hunters hissed, anger now mixed with fear. They had expected an easy kill, not resistance, not fire in the eyes of a human. The leader raised his hand, signaling retreat. "This is not over. Human, we will find you, and when we do, both of you will die slowly." With snarls, they faded into the night, leaving smoke and silence behind. The human fell to his knees, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his arm. He leaned against the warrior's chair, his voice hoarse. We made it." The warrior looked down at him. His eyes glowed with something new, respect. "You are insane, human, insane and brave." For the first time in years, his voice carried a hint of pride. The human laughed weakly. "Maybe, but I will not stop. Not while you breathe." The warrior's chest tightened. The ember of hope inside him grew stronger. He had thought his story ended in chains. Yet here was a fragile human who fought armies with nothing but will. Perhaps destiny had not abandoned him after all. Above them, the city roared on, but beneath the bridge, a bond had been forged in fire and blood, a bond that would not break, a bond that would change everything. The night stretched long after the hunters vanished. The human dragged the warrior's chair deeper into the forgotten alleys, searching for safety. His body ached, his arms burned, but he refused to stop. He would not leave the warrior exposed, not after what they had just faced. Finally, he found an abandoned storehouse, its roof half collapsed, its windows shattered. Dust and shadows filled the air, but it was shelter. He pushed the chair inside and collapsed against the wall. His chest heaved, blood still dripping from his cut. His hands shook from exhaustion. The warrior watched silently. His sharp eyes studied every detail of the human's movements, the way he fought despite weakness, the way he shielded another even when close to death. He had seen countless soldiers in his lifetime, yet none like this, none so fragile, yet so unyielding. The human pulled out a small pouch. He had only a strip of cloth, a bit of water, and an old metal needle. Slowly, he began cleaning his own wound. His breath hissed with pain, but he forced himself to finish. When he was done, he turned toward the warrior. "Your injuries, they need care too." The warrior raised a brow. "I do not need your pity, His deep voice rumbled like thunder, but the human only shook his head. It is not pity, it is respect. You fought for countless lives once. Someone should fight for you now. The human began cleaning the warrior's scars. The alien flinched, not from pain, but from surprise. No one had touched him with care since the day he was broken. Chains, whips, and cruel hands had been his only companions. Now, these hands were gentle, patient, unafraid. Hours passed. The warrior spoke again, his voice softer. Why? Human, why do this? You owe me nothing. You gain nothing. You risk your life for a stranger who cannot even walk. The human paused, his eyes steady. Maybe I gain nothing in coins, but I gain something better. I gain the right to know I did not turn away. I gained the chance to stand for what is right. The warrior's chest tightened. His heart had long been filled with bitterness. But this human's words pierced through. He remembered the day his army had fallen, the betrayal, the chains, the years of silence. He thought honor was dead. Yet here it was, alive in the heart of a simple human. That night, as the human drifted into sleep against the wall, the warrior did not rest. He stared into the dark, thinking. He felt the ember inside him grow, a faint warmth he thought long gone. For the first time in many years, he did not feel like a prisoner. He felt seen. Morning came harsh and gray. The city outside was loud with traders, hunters, and thieves. The human woke, weary but determined. He scavenged food from broken stalls, returned with stale bread and water. He shared half with the warrior, keeping little for himself. The warrior frowned. You give me more than you keep. That is foolish. The human only smiled. Strength is not measured in how much I keep, but in how much I share. The warrior looked away, hiding the strange heaviness in his chest. He had lived among armies, warlords, kings, and merchants. None of them had spoken like this human. None had treated him as more than a tool, a weapon, or a broken relic. Days passed. Each night they moved deeper into the ruins, hiding from hunters who searched the streets. Each day, the human cared for the warrior, fixing his chair, cleaning his wounds, speaking to him as if he were still the commander he once was. Slowly, something changed. The warrior began to speak of his past, not in pride, but in memory. He told of battles across burning skies, of soldiers who trusted him, of the day his legs failed and his enemies chained him. The human listened quietly, never interrupting. His respect was real, not forced. And the warrior began to see himself through the human's eyes, not as broken flesh, but as a soul still carrying fire. He realized this bond was more than chance. It was something forged in courage and sacrifice. One night, as they hid in the skeleton of an old tower, the warrior turned his gaze to the human. His voice was firm. You are strange, human. You fight with no weapon. You give without reason. You stand when others would flee. I do not know if it is bravery or madness, but it is worthy. The human smiled faintly, his eyes tired but shining. Then let's call it both. The warrior's wings twitched, weak but alive. He felt strength stir in places long silent. His honor, crushed by chains, now lifted piece by piece, not by power, but by a fragile creature who refused to let him die forgotten. In that moment, the bond between them was sealed. They were no longer a broken warrior and a reckless human. They were something greater, a spark that could ignite a storm. And far above the ruined tower, unseen by them, the galaxy turned, waiting for the day when this fragile bond would change its fate. The days passed in silence and shadows. The human and the warrior moved from ruin to ruin, hiding from the hunters who still searched. The city seemed alive with whispers, words spreading fast. The paralyzed warrior still lives, and a human has taken him. To some it was a joke, to others a threat, but to a few, it was dangerous knowledge. The human did not hear all the rumors, but the warrior did. He knew that secrets never stayed buried for long, and he carried a secret greater than chains and scars, the truth of who he was. One evening, as the human repaired the broken wheel of the chair, the warrior finally spoke. His voice was deep and heavy. Human, do you know who I am? The human glanced up, his hands still working. I know you were a great fighter, a commander maybe, a protector. That is enough. The warrior's eyes burned in the dim light. No, it is not enough. I was not only a commander, I was the high defender of the Seventh Fleet. I commanded thousands of ships. My name once shook the empires. My enemies feared me. My allies trusted me with their worlds. And when I fell, entire systems fell with me. The human froze, his hands gripping the wheel tighter. He looked up, shocked. You led the Seventh Fleet. The warrior nodded slowly. Yes, and now you see why hunters chase me. If I live, I am a symbol. If I die, I am a trophy. My enemies will never allow me to rise again. They fear my return, even in this broken body. The human sat back, his heart racing. He remembered hearing stories as a child, stories of battles where the Seventh Fleet turned the tide against invading swarms, stories of a commander who never abandoned his soldiers. The name was legendary, but he had never imagined that legend would sit before him in chains. The warrior leaned forward, his eyes locked on the human. Do you understand what you carry? By saving me, you did not only defy slavers, you defied empires. There are powers in this galaxy who would burn entire colonies to ensure I never rise again. And you, a single human, stand in their way. The human swallowed hard. His voice shook, but did not break. Then let them come. I did not save you because of who you were. I saved you because of who you are, broken or not. You are worth saving. For a moment, the warrior said nothing. His chest tightened. His throat burned. He had heard speeches from kings, oaths from soldiers, lies from politicians, but never had he heard such simple words that carried such weight. Outside, thunder rolled. Dark clouds gathered over the city. The hunter gangs were not the only ones moving. Far beyond the city, whispers reached the ears of warlords and rulers. The name of the warrior had returned, carried by the reckless act of one human. Enemies stirred, sharpening their blades, preparing fleets. That night, the human dreamed of fire, of ships burning in the void, of soldiers crying for a leader. He woke to find the warrior staring at the stars through a broken roof, his voice low, almost a whisper. I thought destiny ended for me, but perhaps it only slept. Perhaps you, human, are the key to waking it. The human sat beside him. I don't know about destiny. I just know I won't let them take you again. The warrior turned his gaze to him, his eyes shining faintly in the dark. You are strange, human, so small, so fragile, and yet you carry burdens no giant dares carry. Maybe that is why your kind are feared in whispers. You are weak in body, but strong in spirit, and spirit can move mountains. The human smiled faintly. Then we'll move mountains together. But as dawn broke, the danger became real. In the distance, heavy ships descended on the city, marked with the symbols of warlords who once fought the Seventh Fleet. They had come not for trade, not for slaves, but for one prisoner. Paralyzed or not, the warrior had to die. The human and the warrior watched the skies burn with engines. Both knew what it meant. The hunters were only the beginning. Now greater enemies had joined the chase. The human's heart pounded. Fear clawed at him, but he stood tall. Then this is where it begins. The warrior's wings twitched, his voice firm despite his broken body. Yes, human, the storm has awakened, and you have chosen to stand at its heart. The city shivered as the warlord ships landed. Their engines thundered. Their soldiers marched. Streets that were once filled with traitors now shook under the boots of armored troops. Hunters who once laughed at the human now hid in fear. Everyone knew what it meant. When warlords moved, blood would follow. The human pushed the warrior's chair through narrow alleys, searching for escape. Smoke from the landing crafts filled the sky. Neon lights flickered in warning. He could feel the city closing around them. Soldiers at every corner. Checkpoints on every street. They were hunted not by gangs now, but by armies. The warrior's eyes were sharp despite his broken frame. He studied the soldiers' patterns, their movements, their weaknesses. They are searching quadrant by quadrant. They will reach us within the hour, he growled. The human wiped sweat from his brow. Then we need to move faster. His voice carried no fear, only resolve. They reached the ruins of an old factory. Machines rusted, walls cracked, but inside lay cover. The human pushed the warrior in and barred the doors with scraps. They collapsed in the shadows. Breathless, the warrior turned his gaze to the human. You should leave me. Human, save yourself. They do not want you. They want me. The human shook his head, fierce and stubborn. I will not leave you. Not after everything. Not after I saw what they did to you. The warrior's chest tightened. His eyes softened for a brief moment. He felt something stir deep within, something he had buried under years of chains and pain. Honor. His honor was waking. That night, the factory shook as patrols passed outside. The human tried to rest, but the warrior remained awake, staring at his hands. They trembled, weak and scarred. Yet he remembered when they once commanded fleets. He closed his eyes, reaching into his mind, summoning the discipline that once moved armies. Inside his chair, hidden beneath layers of old plating, lay forgotten tech. He pressed his palm to a small panel. A faint hum filled the air. The chair responded. Lights flickering, the human stirred awake. What is that? The warrior's eyes glowed faintly. The last gift of my fleet, a neural frame. It kept me alive when my body failed. I thought it useless. But with will, it may answer again. The human watched as the warrior gritted his teeth, his body shaking. Sparks ran along the chair's frame. His wings twitched, his hands clenched tighter. Muscles that had been silent for years began to stir. The warrior roared, the sound shaking the factory walls. For the first time, his arm lifted with strength. The human's eyes widened in awe. You're moving. The warrior's breath was heavy, sweat dripping. Not much, but enough. He flexed again, the chair's systems aligning with his nerves. Bit by bit, he regained motion in his arms and upper body. The human stepped closer, hope blazing in his eyes. Then we have a chance. By dawn, soldiers stormed the factory. Doors crashed open. Blasters lit the dark. The human grabbed a broken pipe and stood in front of the warrior, ready to fight again. But this time, he was not alone. The warrior gripped the chair's controls, his arms strong enough to move the mounted cannons that had long been silent. Energy hummed. The first wave of soldiers rushed inside. Confident in numbers, confident in armor, they did not expect fire. The warrior unleashed the cannons, blasts tearing through the walls. Soldiers scattered, shouts filled the air. The human swung his pipe, striking down one soldier who got too close. Together, human and warrior fought. The battle raged, the warrior's body strained, every movement burning. But he fought like a commander again, directing the human. Left, human, strike now. Duck, the human obeyed, moving fast, his blade and pipe finding gaps in armor. The two moved as one. For the first time since his fall, the warrior felt alive. His blood roared, his heart thundered. He was still broken, but not defeated. And by his side stood a human who refused to let him die. That bond gave him strength more than any machine. When the last soldier fell, silence filled the factory. Smoke and fire lingered. The human leaned against the wall, chest heaving, blood on his arms. He looked at the warrior and smiled weakly. We did it. The warrior sat tall in his chair, his arms steady. His wings twitched faintly. His eyes burned with new fire. No, human. This was only the beginning. My strength returns, and with it, the warlords will know I am not finished. The human grinned, his face pale but proud. Then let them come. We'll face them together. The warrior stared at him, a strange respect glowing in his eyes. He had fought beside countless soldiers, but never beside one like this, fragile in body, unbreakable in spirit. And in that ruined factory, among the ashes of battle, the return of strength had begun. The factory lay in ruins, smoke rising into the gray sky. But there was no time to rest. The warrior and the human both knew it. The warlords would not stop after losing one squad. They would come again, with more soldiers, more fire, more rage. By evening, the city shook with marching boots. War drums echoed through the alleys. Heavy ships hovered above the towers. Their spotlights cut through the night like burning suns. The citizens hid, doors locked, windows closed. No one dared to be outside. The hunt was no longer secret. The warlords wanted blood. Inside the ruined factory, the human tied cloth around his wounds. His body was weak, but his spirit steady. He glanced at the warrior, who sat tall in his chair, arms alive with new strength. The neural frame hummed, lights glowing. His wings twitched faintly, his eyes burned like fire. The warrior's deep voice broke the silence. They will come in waves. They will not stop until we are ash. The human nodded, gripping his broken pipe. Then we don't stop either. The first wave came fast, soldiers crashing through the gates. Blasters lit the dark. The warrior roared, cannons blazing. The human darted between shadows, striking with speed. For every soldier that tried to rush the chair, the human's blade found a gap. For every soldier aiming at the human, the warrior's cannon roared in answer. Together, they fought as one. The second wave brought heavier armor. Tanks rolled through the streets. The ground shook. The human's heart pounded. But the warrior did not flinch. He tapped into the neural frame deeper, forcing his broken body to obey. His hands gripped the controls. Energy surged. With one mighty blast, he tore through the first tank. Fire split the air. Soldiers screamed, retreating. But the enemy commander was ruthless. From the largest ship descended a towering figure, clad in black armor. His eyes glowed red. His voice thundered. So the cripple still breathes. You should have stayed dead. Now both you and your human pet will be ashes. The warrior growled, his wings twitching. I feared you once, warlord. I fear you no more. The human stepped forward, pipe in hand, bruised but unyielding. You'll have to get through me first. The warlord laughed, his blade humming with energy. He charged, moving like a storm. The human blocked with his pipe, sparks flying. The force sent him crashing back, but he rose again, blood dripping, his eyes locked on the enemy. You will not touch him. The warrior's chest swelled with pride. He gripped the cannons, firing, forcing the warlord to dodge. The human attacked again, striking with speed. Together they moved, not master and servant, not fragile and broken, but brothers in battle. The fight raged across the factory floor. Stone crumbled, fire rained. The human's body failed again and again, yet he rose each time, his will unbroken. The warrior, once paralyzed in chains, now thundered with power. His voice roared. We fight together, human. We end this together. At last, the warlord raised his blade high, aiming for the human's heart. The warrior forced his body beyond its limits. His arm reached out. His hand grabbed the warlord's wrist. Metal cracked. The human, seizing the moment, drove his blade deep into the warlord's chest. The enemy staggered, roaring in rage, then fell, his armor crashing like thunder. Silence followed. Soldiers who watched from the shadows froze. Their warlord lay dead, slain not by armies, not by fleets, but by one broken warrior and one fragile human. Fear spread through their ranks. They turned and fled. Ships lifted off, vanishing into the stormy sky. The human dropped his pipe, collapsing beside the warrior's chair, his breath ragged, his eyes heavy. He whispered, We did it. The warrior looked down at him, pride shining in his eyes. Yes, human, against all odds, against all chains, we did it. For the first time in years, the warrior lifted his head high, his wings spread, weak but alive. He was no longer a prisoner. He was no longer broken. He was reborn. And the galaxy would soon learn the truth. Legends had returned, carried not by fleets, not by armies, but by the courage of one human who dared to save the paralyzed warrior.